Tonight on News 3 New Mexico, we have an update on the recent bomb threat in Portales.
And is this rainy weather here to stay? Find out in my full weather forecast.
And the president is putting an end date on U.S. deployment in Afghanistan. News 3 New Mexico starts right now.
This is News 3 New Mexico, your local source for news, sports, and first weather.
Good evening and welcome to News 3 New Mexico. I'm Marilyn Upchurch. The Roosevelt County Courthouse was evacuated Wednesday due to a bomb threat. We reached out for comment, but according to the Eastern New Mexico News, Sheriff Malin Parker said such calls sometimes come in due to people not wanting to make court appearances, but that the county will take any such threat seriously. The Cannon Air Force Base Explosive Ordnance Disposal Team aided on the scene, which did not find anything to substantiate the threat. Parker told the Eastern New Mexico News his office believes it has located the source of the threat, but did not provide additional details. An arrest warrant has been issued for Gabriel Velasquez, who was involved in a motor vehicle crash, leaving 2 persons with life-threatening injuries. Last Wednesday, Glenn Eagle and Karen Jones were ejected from a single motorcycle and sustained life-threatening injuries after Velasquez allegedly crashed into them in a silver Buick Century, then proceeded to flee the scene. The arrest warrant for Velasquez has been generated for accidents involving death or personal injury, commonly referred to as leaving the scene of an accident with injuries, which is a third-degree felony. As of April 14th, Gabriel Velasquez has not been taken into custody, and Glenn Eagle and Karen Jones are still in the care of medical personnel. If you have any information on the whereabouts of Gabriel Velasquez, you can contact the Clovis Police Department at 575-769-1921. New Mexico has reached a $260,000 settlement with a whistleblower who alleged retaliation by state insurance regulators after she reported that a major health care insurer was allegedly avoiding tax payments. An attorney for Shauna Maestas confirmed the financial settlement Wednesday after the terms were published on a state clearinghouse website. The agreement ensures that Maestas can seek work at other state agencies. Maestas, who previously oversaw the state's Financial Audit Bureau, and 2 former colleagues at the Office of the Superintendent of Insurance, are still pursuing the state for a 20% share of a roughly $18 million settlement with Presbyterian Health Plan for alleged underpayment of taxes on insurance premiums. That case before the State Court of Appeals hinges on provisions of the Fraud Against Taxpayers Act that can provide whistleblowers who report wrongdoing between 15% and 25% of funds recovered by state prosecutors. Well, Scott, we had a lot of clouds this week, but we didn't get a whole lot of rain, and I really like rainy weather. So what do you have for us for this coming week?
That's right, Marilyn. We did have quite a bit of clouds this week. We even had some precipitation yesterday, which was really nice. However, if we take a look at the maps, we can see that there's not a whole lot going on in the state. We can just be expecting these pretty warm temperatures throughout the week. We can see 75 or 75 in Cruces, 70 in Alamogordo, and even 68 in TRC. And if we take a look in the southeast, we can see 71 in Roswell and Carlsbad and 66 in Hobbs. So pretty warm week looking ahead. Now back to you, Marilyn.
If you've gotten the Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine, you'll likely need a 3rd dose within a year. The CEO of Pfizer, Albert Bourla, says people are likely to need a booster dose of the vaccine 6 to 12 months after their first round. From there, it will be an annual revaccination. Officials are still testing the timing of follow-up vaccine doses. Bourla shared the news during a CVS Health Live event posted to Facebook Thursday. He also added that real-world data shows the Pfizer vaccine is effective against a worrying variant of coronavirus first seen in South Africa. Albuquerque Public Schools say 50 students have received shots as part of a pilot program to promote vaccines for teenagers. State residents aged 16 and up became eligible for the vaccine last week. The school district plans to drive students to clinics by offering special events starting next week. The pilot took place in a district training facility where teachers began receiving vaccines in December. The vaccination effort follows a push to get educators vaccinated last month. Around 15% of Albuquerque public school staff declined the vaccines, while 85% have received one. Parents are required to attend the vaccine clinics in order to sign release forms for 16 or 17-year-olds. The end of the school year is fast approaching. Many students who attend in person this school year will only have been in the physical classroom for about a month. Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham signed the capital outlay bill last week, which includes more than $28 million in funding for projects in Dona Ana County, as well as millions for other projects in southern New Mexico. The bill funds more than $511 million in projects throughout the state, including roughly $64 million for water and wastewater improvements, $53 million for roads, $49 million for higher education, $48 million for public safety, and $8 million for dams and ditches. There was also $12.5 million to support local Economic Development Act projects and $10 million for health facilities and prisons. Lujan Grisham used her line item veto authority to strike less than 2% of the projects included in the bill. We'll have weather with Scott after this break, but first, here's a look at today's financial markets.
Welcome back, Eastern New Mexico. This is Scott Hawes, and this is your full weather report. Taking a look at our satellite and radar, we can see that there is quite a bit going on all across the country. As if we take a look into Tornado Alley, we can see quite a bit of precipitation pushing its way through there. We can also see in spots like Denver, there are accumulating quite a bit of snow over there. What does that mean for New Mexico, though? We're working with something. We definitely see precipitation coming from the south, pushing its way to the east. However, it will not be getting over to Portales, unfortunately. However, spots like Carlsbad and Hobbs will be receiving quite a bit of precipitation within the next couple days. Now let's take a look at some of our current temperatures. We can see in Farmington, it is currently 57 degrees, 58 in Gallup, as well as Santa Fe, and 61 in Albuquerque. Taking a look, we can also see 36 in Raton and 42 in Clayton. As we take a look down to the southeast, we can see 54 and 55 in Clovis and Portales, 71 in Roswell and Carlsbad, and the cool 66 in Hobbs. Now let's take a look at tonight's lows, as we can see 30 in Santa Fe, 38 in Albuquerque, and 40 in Socorro. We can see a very chilly 21 in Raton and 27 in Clayton, 36 in Tucumcari. Moving down to the southeast, 34 in Portales, 31 in Clovis, and 38 down in Hobbs. Now, let's take a look at tomorrow's highs. We can be expecting 49 in Santa Fe, 56 in Albuquerque, and 61 in Socorro. We can also be expecting to see temperatures of 40 degrees in Raton, 46 in Clayton, and 55 in Tucumcari. Moving it down to the southeast, we can expect to see temperatures of 54 in Clovis, 55 in Portales, and 52 down in Hobbs. Now, let's take a look at the 7-day forecast for Carlsbad. As we can see, on Saturday and Sunday, pretty clear day. On Saturday, 55, 59 on Sunday, 71 on Monday, and 64 on Tuesday. Pretty sunny weekend ahead for Carlsbad. Now, let's wrap it up with Portales. As we can see, pretty cloudy weekend, 56, 58, 69 on Monday, and 56 on Tuesday. This entire week will be cloudy, so make sure to look out for that, and we will be jumping up the temperature chart to 74 and 73 on Thursday and Friday.
Well, thanks, Scott. It looks like it's going to be a kind of colder weekend this weekend, but I'm excited for the warm weather next week. We'll be back with more news after the break. New Mexico medical marijuana providers on Wednesday warned of a potential cannabis shortage in late June when the first provisions of a new law go into effect to legalize recreational marijuana. Recreational cannabis sales don't begin until early 2022, but several medical marijuana businesses say there could be a run on medical marijuana supplies in a late June of this year when the new legalization law takes effect and increases purchases and possession limits, with virtually no restrictions on how much can be stashed away at home for personal use. Ultra Health called for an increase in the current limits on marijuana production to ensure there is no extreme shortage. Environmentalists from New Mexico's oil and gas regions called the state to strengthen oil and gas regulations amid a pause on new leases for public land for fossil fuel development by President Joe Biden's administration. Multiple speakers in a press conference voiced concern that New Mexico's state leadership could seek a waiver from federal climate change actions, as Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham and her cabinet recently wrote public letters to the Biden administration explaining the economic harm that could be brought on through a disruption of fossil fuel production. A local group in Carlsbad on the Permian Basin said forwarding oil and gas development in the area could threaten local water supplies for the agricultural industry in the states. New Mexico currently leading the U.S. in broadband needs. This was a problem highlighted Monday by the Biden administration as it looks to infuse more than $2 trillion into infrastructure projects nationwide. In New Mexico, the federal government estimates that 22% of residents live in areas where there's no broadband infrastructure that provides acceptable internet speeds. As a result, Senator Ben Ray Lujan recently introduced legislation with Republican Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina that would reimburse schools for installing Wi-Fi on buses. Lujan also introduced a measure that would authorize $5 billion for a program that makes low-interest financing available for broadband infrastructure projects. A team of researchers has named a 6.7-foot-long shark that lived 300 million years ago based on a skeleton that was found in the Manzano Mountains, about 30 miles southeast of Albuquerque. According to the New Mexico Museum of Natural History and Science, the complete skeleton of the shark was discovered and identified to have 12 rows of teeth, along with two 2.5-foot long fin spines on its back. A press release states that the features of the shark resulted in its nickname Godzilla shark when it was initially discovered in the Manzano Mountains in May 2013. The museum reports that a group of scientists who were participating in a scientific meeting visited the mountains to learn about the rocks as well as fossils of the late Pennsylvanian period plants and animals preserved there. Stay tuned for more news after this break. In national news, President Biden is putting an end date on U.S. deployment in Afghanistan. CNN's Phil Mattingly has the story.
It's time for American troops to come home.
Tonight, America's longest war is finally coming to an end. President Joe Biden standing in the same exact spot where President George W. Bush launched operations in Afghanistan nearly 2 decades ago.
On my orders, the United States military has begun strikes against al-Qaeda terrorist training camps and military installations of the Taliban regime in Afghanistan.
Biden tonight announcing to the world he will bring U.S. combat troops home by the 20th anniversary of the worst terror attack on U.S. soil.
We went to Afghanistan because of a horrific attack that happened 20 years ago. That cannot explain why we should remain there in 2021.
A decision officials described as months in the making, with Biden soliciting views from across his administration and global allies, and coming to this conclusion.
I'm now the 4th United States president to preside over American troop presence in Afghanistan. 2 Republicans, 2 Democrats. I will not pass this responsibility onto a 5th.
A momentous decision wrought with potential pitfalls. The U.S. intelligence community just this week explicitly stating the, quote, Afghan government will struggle to hold the Taliban at bay if the coalition withdraws support. Biden making clear the U.S. will continue diplomatic and humanitarian support, but breaking sharply from the driving force of past withdrawal timelines.
We cannot continue the cycle of extending or expanding our military presence in Afghanistan, hoping to create ideal conditions for the withdrawal and expecting a different result.
Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell sharply criticizing the move.
Apparently, we're to help our adversaries ring in the anniversary of the 9/11 attacks by gift wrapping the country and handing it right back to them.
And issuing a warning from a similar decision in the not-so-distant past.
Our president should remember what happened when the Obama administration let political considerations rush a retreat from Iraq. Total chaos and bloodshed and ISIS.
But Biden's decision went beyond just bringing troops home. Instead, officials say it's a reevaluation of U.S. defense priorities, one with a central focus on China. The stakes underscored at a hearing today with top intelligence officials.
China increasingly is a near-peer competitor, challenging the United States in multiple areas, while pushing to revise global norms in ways that favor the authoritarian Chinese system.
With intelligence officials highlighting North Korea, Iran, terror groups, and an increasingly aggressive Russia as major issues. It's a daunting picture for a team still inside its first 100 days in office. But as Biden walks slowly through Arlington Cemetery's Section 60, the resting place of many of those killed in America's wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, he showed no hesitation or discomfort in his decision.
Was it a hard decision to make, sir?
No, it wasn't.
For a president who was pressed to leave Afghanistan for more than a decade, it was one a long time coming.
To me, it was absolutely clear.
Both Presidents Obama and Trump sought to end U.S. military campaign in Afghanistan, but they walked back those plans partly because of the security situation and tried to prop up Afghanistan's government. A federal judge in Texas says the federal government can take private land to build the southern border law. After a years-long court battle, the federal government can take immediate possession of a Texas family's land along the U.S.-Mexico border. That's even though the Biden administration might not want it. The eminent domain case over the Cavazos family property started during the Trump administration. President Joe Biden paused border wall construction when he took office, and the Justice Department asked for a continuance in the case. The continuance was lifted on Tuesday, but immediately before a hearing about the matter, the judge granted the government's 2020 motion to take the land. Universities who decided to return to in-person classes have struggled to control outbreaks on campus. Some universities have announced they will require students to have a COVID-19 vaccine when they return this fall. A majority of universities with the requirement are private, including Duke University in North Carolina and the University of Notre Dame. At least 25 U.S. colleges and universities have joined that list. Some of those schools are also mandating vaccines for campus faculty and staff. Dartmouth College, Cornell University, and Brown University are among the schools requiring student vaccinations for the fall semester. Your calculators can rest easy on Thursday. For most of us this year, April 15th is not tax day. The IRS has delayed its federal tax filing deadline for the most part until May 17th. The delay gives individual filers, tax preparers, and the IRS a chance to look at any changes that may affect this year's filings. There are two exceptions. Anyone who pays estimated taxes, like many small business owners, still must make their usual payment in by April 15th, and victims of February winter storms who live in Texas, Oklahoma, and Louisiana have until June 15th to file their taxes. That is all the news we have for you right now. After the break, we will have one last look at weather with Scott. Well, if you have weekend plans, you might want to listen to what Scott has for us. What do you have for us for the weekend ahead?
That's right. So for Roswell, we can expect to see over the weekend temperatures pretty low. Friday at 43 and cloudy. Saturday also cloudy and at 53. And they'll even be dipping down to near freezing temperatures on Sunday, where there's not going to be a whole lot of sun, but they will be at about 39 degrees. However, for Portales, we can see that that's not quite as much the case, as on Friday it'll be about 73 degrees, a little more sunshine. On Saturday, it will be dipping down to 51, and we will be having some cloud coverage. And on Sunday, same story, different day at 55 degrees and cloudy.
Well, that is all we have for you today, but we'll leave you with the sights and sounds of the basketball matchup between the Portales Rams and Clovis Wildcats basketball game from this past weekend. Stay safe, and we will see you next week.
Senior number 13, Adrian Contaveros. Ambassador Cinnamon Bailey.